And thank you so much for joining us today to learn more about the Circular Transportation Network. Thanks also to Recycle Colorado for hosting this webinar for us. We truly appreciate it. I'm Susan Renaud. I'm the Director of Special Projects for the Circular Economy Development Center, and we'll refer to it from here on out as the CEDC. And while I'll explain the Circular Transportation Network, I first want to give an overview of the CEDC. I'll also leave some time for discussion and questions and feedback at the end. And I also just want to say thanks so much to those of you who were able to complete the survey that we shared ahead of time. We'll discuss that more at the end of the presentation. So jumping right in, we wanted to give some context about the CEDC and who we are. So the CEDC formed as a result of legislation in 2022 to develop circular economies in Colorado. The CEDC is administered by Circular Colorado, which is a local nonprofit. We have a contract with the state to create and run the CEDC. We're technically a program of CDPHE, and our funding comes from the C3 Enterprise Fund. Our purpose is to grow existing local end markets for materials, to create new end markets that don't currently exist in Colorado, and to address any infrastructure needs and transportation challenges to get the materials to end markets. We're also tasked with delivering 3 full circular economies in the state over the next 4 years. So this is the CEDC team. Our group consists of professionals with a lot of different areas of expertise. We have folks with a background in business, waste diversion, product design, economic and business development, and environmental health and safety. And in addition to our staff on the Front Range, we also have 2 satellite offices throughout the state. We have one that's in Colorado Springs and Pueblo, another one that serves Grand Junction, and then soon we're going to be opening a new one in southwestern Colorado. The CEDC helps companies, municipalities, and stakeholders transform linear consumption models into circular economies. So our vision is to keep materials out of the landfill and to keep them circulating at the highest value in our local economy. To do that, we act as a quarterback to identify and coordinate circular projects and bring partners together. And we provide a range of services and technical assistance for our projects. A lot of what we do is economic development because so much of creating a circular economy really lies in that economic development sphere. So we also, through that, do a lot to attract manufacturers to Colorado. We provide funding assistance, help with site selection, help to navigate public-private partnerships, and really just plug everyone into their place in the loop. We also address barriers to collection and transportation logistics, which can be a huge hurdle in circular economies. And we develop end markets. So we're really trying to get recycled content to local manufacturers that can turn the materials into new products here in Colorado. We've published a circular model guide, which is a step-by-step guide of our process. And I won't go into it in detail here, but you can find it with more information on our website if you're curious to learn more. We're currently working on 8 projects. The project that I'm about to share addresses regional transportation, but other projects target circularity around more specific materials and developing end markets for them. So our first project is the Circular Transportation Network. For this project, we are running milk runs to mountain and rural communities to collect recyclable materials that wouldn't be collected otherwise. So we'll pick up materials for free using trucks that are currently returning to the Front Range empty. And we're looking to address recycling challenges for business and municipalities with a lack of access to recycling, and also for those that for which transportation costs are prohibitive due to economies of scale. So we'll accept many recyclable materials that are currently part of community recycling programs, as well as a few others. You'll notice that we can also collect plastic film and downfilled products like jackets and sleeping bags. For those who attended a previous webinar, you may note that we've pared down the material list just a little bit. We do intend to collect most recyclable materials eventually, but we're starting with these because they have clear end markets for them. We can pick up all of the materials from a site, or we can also just pick up one or some materials. So if, for instance, a business or a municipal drop site that's already recycling other materials wanted to add something like plastic film to their offerings, we could pick up just that one material. The criteria for accepted materials is listed here. We're not a MRF, just to be clear. So materials need to come source separated and also clean. It's also important to keep the contamination low. It needs to be below 5% because we just don't have the ability to separate it out. And we also need to be careful not to get containers with hazardous material residues like chemicals or pesticides. I also just want to note that the criteria for downfilled products will be different. I'm not going to go into it in detail here, but if you have some downfilled products that you want to discuss, please contact me and I'm happy to go through that with you. For collection receptacles, materials need to be collected in gaylords, super sacks, or bales, and then each one needs to be on a pallet for pickup. The reason being that our truck will have a little donkey forklift on it that can lift the materials up onto the bed so that we can get them onto the truck. We don't need to have a loading dock in order to do that. And so we're just trying to make it as accessible as possible for everybody. If you need help getting super sacks or pallets, please let us know and we may be able to help with that. So how are we doing this? This is a collaboration between the CEDC, so we're acting as the organizer, the Front Range Transload, which is a facility in Pueblo with access to both truck and rail, and Kirkland Trucking Company. So the trucking company deploys trucks from the Front Range at regular intervals to locations throughout the state. You can see some of the routes depicted here in different colors. So the trucks normally return empty, and we saw this as an opportunity to use that empty space to backhaul materials to the transload facility. Materials are taken to the Front Range Transload site in Pueblo. There they'll be aggregated, baled, and shipped to local and regional end markets, primarily by rail. You can see here that we're also planning to have a commercial drop site. There's also a hoop structure for additional storage and a warehouse, and you can see the rail spurs here as well. So for this model to work, the circular transportation network can't pay for materials, but on the upside, they also won't charge for materials to be picked up. And something that we want to clarify too is that this isn't intended to pilfer customers from existing haulers. It's really meant just to capture material that wouldn't be diverted otherwise. So we've done our best to make this easy for participation. To sign up, you'll go to our website and fill out a form. There's no commitment here. It's just to get set up in our system. And I'll add a link to that webpage in the chat a little bit later. From there, you'll collect your materials. They need to be collected, as I mentioned before, in gaylords, super sacks, or bales and put on pallets. After that, once you've aggregated enough materials, you can submit a pickup request form. And you can also find that on our website. On that form, we'll ask you a few questions. We'll ask you about the materials that you'd like to have picked up. We'll ask you about the weight of the materials. This doesn't have to be perfect, but it's really helpful in planning our routes so that we can calculate those weights. We're also going to ask for some photos of the materials. You can upload those from your phone, but it's important for us to be able to see them just so that we can use them to qualify the material and make sure that it all meets our criteria. So once we've had a chance to qualify the material and it's been approved, we'll work with you to schedule a pickup. I want to note that the return routes aren't static. They can change according to the requests that we receive. And then we'll design the routes to pick up the materials as they're requested. We're still working out the threshold as to how far off the major thoroughfares we can deviate to pick up the material. And so we can work on that on a case-by-case basis with you. So this was really designed to benefit rural and mountain communities. The network allows businesses and municipalities to recycle that couldn't do it otherwise. It provides opportunities to divert different materials that may not be available to communities currently, such as film plastics or textiles with down. It creates economies of scale for small scale generators who'd find transportation costs of hauling material prohibitive. And as a bonus, it can also reduce trash hauling costs by reducing the volume of waste that's currently going to the landfill. So we're planning to start piloting a few routes soon. We're testing this as a proof of concept, and we anticipate that it'll evolve over time as we learn more about the logistical needs of our rural and mountain communities. Through the initial pilots and stakeholder engagement, we'd like to identify materials that aren't currently being collected and are being sent to the landfill. And while we want to pick up as many of those materials as possible, it's also important for us to be able to balance the ability to offset the transportation costs with the end markets and the material values. So this is going to be a little bit of a work in progress. But our hope is to get as many partners on board as possible, and we'd love your help identifying potential businesses or drop sites that would like to participate. We're putting together a toolkit that we can share with partners to promote the program. And so if you have interest in helping us to promote that, we would love it. And we're more than happy to share those materials with you. So thanks so much for your time. As I said before, we've set up a framework for the network, but it is still a work in progress. And we want to make sure that it addresses the needs of the communities that we're hoping to serve. So in the remaining time, we're hoping that we can hear from you all. We'd love to hear your questions. We're happy to answer those. We'd also love to hear about materials that you may currently have that you want to divert. We'd also love to know about any logistical challenges that you're currently facing, and then how the transportation network may be able to best help you. So to kick off the discussion, I'll put up one more slide now. This shows the results of the survey that we sent out asking about materials that you may know of in your community that you'd like help moving. So these are the materials that came up. The last two, just a full disclosure, the cartons and the C&D materials, those didn't actually come up in the survey, but they have come up in other conversations. So we just wanted to include them here. And so with that, I'll stop, and I want to pass the baton to Lori Johnson, our director, for discussion. And Lori, do you want me to keep this list up, or do you want me to stop sharing my screen? I don't know if she's able to be unmuted as well.
Yep, I can unmute her. Give me one.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, she should be able to talk.
Oh, sorry. You know what? Try one more, Lori Johnson.
Okay, 1 second.
Thank you.
Wrong Lori. There she is. Okay, Lori should be able to talk now.
Okay, great. Lori, do you want me to stop sharing the screen?
Hold on a sec. Let's get this all right here. Oh, it says, I don't know. It's not letting me turn my camera on, so I don't know if I don't have control over that. So if somebody can undo that, then I will put my mugshot up there. You can leave the screen up, because if we're not going to see participants, if someone has questions, I would love to answer any specific questions that you have about the program or what we can and can't do. And I don't know, Susan, how this webinar is working. You have somebody monitoring a chat? Are you asking folks to put things up in a chat?
Sure. Allie, what's the best way to do that?
Should
we just do it through the chat?
We can do it through the chat, or we can have people raise their hands, and then I can allow them to talk and communicate with you guys.
Let's just do that. Let's just have a conversation.
Cool. Okay, so if anyone has a question or material that you wanted to talk about, feel free to raise your hand, and then I can allow you to talk.
And Susan and Lori, there were two questions in the Q&A already. One was, would you consider adding cartons? And the other one is, how do businesses in Pueblo use the drop-off?
Oh, I see that one. Okay. I only see one of those. So, first thing, cartons, glass, other materials that require a little bit different handling or do not have really easy access to markets are kind of TBD for us for right now. We will do our best. We first need to really focus on the routes and the transportation and pick up materials that we know we can get to market, so they don't back up here at the transload. So that's the answer to that one. And we're moving along as quick as we can. As far as Pueblo goes with the business drop-off, that will open in second phase. So sometime after the first of the year, and we are working, I believe, with the county of Pueblo to get word out, and hopefully we'll also work with the city to get word out to the businesses with the hours, Monday through Friday, that they'll be able to come and bring materials off. So hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Lori. I'm gonna let Christine talk now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Christine.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Christine, how are you?
Oh, good, thank you. Thank you so much for putting this on. And I apologize, I will fill out the survey. We represent the San Luis Valley, and I know that Chaffee County, just north of us, got funding to build a MRF. And so I'm just wondering, and I know that's years away, but I'm just wondering how has that been thought about, or how is that going to be phased in with everything that you're doing?
So the transload is meant to not, we're very separate from the MRF, right? So if there's a MRF, that's phenomenal. That means that you have a place to get your materials to get them separated, right, and get them to market. The Transload CTN, now as we call it, the Circular Transportation Network, was really designed to help folks get materials that are destined for landfill because there's no option and no option for transportation. Occasionally, where there may be a very small MRF, and I don't know what size it'll be in Chaffee County, say they could not take and so everyone has to send their film to a landfill still. That's the one. That's a place where we may potentially be able to work with a MRF if they have area to collect that film, and then we would be able to collect it on the Transload network. So does that make sense? But otherwise, the MRF, obviously within its daily operations, would take care of its own transportation to get its materials to market.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification. I guess yeah, that makes sense. And is compost going to be handled separately?
We won't do anything with compost. This is simply hard materials that are going to go by either a flatbed or a curtain trailer truck, which is like a flatbed but with sides on it that can be rolled up so it can be loaded from the side with the donkey with the little forklift.
Mhm.
But no, there won't be anything that's degradable like organics or green waste going on the transload.
Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. So one of the good rule of thumb that when you think about the CTN is really the first qualifying question is it currently going to landfill, right? So what the CTN isn't designed to do is to subsidize, say, transportation of somebody who's transporting it some other way somewhere, but now says, oh, well, I want it to get picked up for free, right? And so I'll just call it the CTN. So it wasn't designed for that. It was designed really to pick up material that's already going to landfill. So that's your main qualifying question to ask when you think about, oh, I wonder if the Transload could help, the CTN could help with this. Any other questions? And I think we've already talked to a number of you, Susan has in outreach. So some of you may have already had your questions answered.
Let's see, I think, Christine, did you have another one just while you have the ability to talk?
Yeah, and yes, and I apologize. But for example, the city of Alamosa is collecting and source separating now. Would they be an area, and honestly, they're providing a service to everyone. Would that be an area where pickup could be scheduled?
Any area is an area really. If we have a truck coming or going from any one of those major destinations where they're dropping off materials, so could start in the Southwest, could start in Grand Junction, Steamboat, up north, Fort Collins, down south, Trinidad, out east. So it's really going to be just based on demand. And so the forms that Susan talked about that you can fill out that are accessible on the CEDC website, so coloradocedc.org, is how we'll be able to map out those stops.
Okay.
You said too that Christine, you were gonna fill out the survey. So one of the best things that everybody could do for us to help us get going is to fill out that really quick survey so we know kind of what's out there.
Will do.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Christine. And I think Joni was next. Go ahead, Joni, you should be able to ask your question.
Okay. I am sitting at Hugh Berger Subaru waiting for my car to be worked on, so there's a lot of background noise. I hope this is okay.
No problem. We
Um,
don't even hear it.
You can hear me okay? So I'm in Custer County. We have a MRF that takes cardboard, mixed paper, aluminum cans, and steel cans. And we also, in town through another organization, collect glass, which we have to pay, I think it's $1,180 a month to have it hauled up to glass.
Mhm.
So we have to do fundraisers every year to raise about $15,000 to keep glass recycling going. And then the other thing is that nobody in our area is collecting plastic. I think Pueblo is doing #1 plastic now, but I'm not sure. No one in Fremont, no one in Chaffee, no one in Custer, Lake, Park. I think it's, there may be if you have private trash service, but there's no drop off. So plastic is our biggest problem. And the other big problem in a rural area is to get people to separate their plastic by numbers. And so if we're only taking 3 to 7, I'm concerned that people will just not bother and throw it all in their trash.
And we won't only, these are just ones that could be diverted that are probably going to the landfill. So the CTN could pick up 1s and 2s, absolutely. So if they're going to the landfill right now, so again, go back to that qualifying question, right? Is it currently going to landfill? So if your 1s and 2s are going to landfills and you can get them collected into a container, then the CTN would be happy to try to help pick those up. That makes make sense?
It does make sense, but can they, so I guess I'm recommending for the rural areas to not encourage people individually to separate their plastic by numbers and see if there's a way that could be separated once it's collected.
Yeah, we won't be able to do that. The CTN doesn't, well, it's like Susan said, this is not a MRF. This is solely for the transport. So it will be on the community or the business or whoever really wants to get that material diverted to get it source separated. So already the transportation is quote unquote free, right? So that's how we're trying to support the transportation piece of it. But there is no budget for anyone to be able to separate it. Like like in a MRF.
So that would be up to us with our marketing and emphasizing whatever we need to do to get people to separate it.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so maybe I'll go down these questions now. Or do you have another question, Joni? A quick one?
No.
Okay,
no.
Great. I hope your car gets fixed. Okay, I'm going to go down the list here. I think in order. I think I have D first. What kind of quantity of styrofoam would you like to have before scheduling a pickup? So we are going mostly by container. So, we're looking at what the minimum should be. So we have talked about anywhere from 5 to 8 super sacks or gaylords to collect that way, or bales. So if you can get a minimum of that, we can talk about a pickup. Also know that with some of these materials, the reason you're going to fill out a form on the site is because many of them are case specific, right? So we have to make sure, right, that styrofoam can get to somebody who has a densifier. I'm assuming this is not densified styrofoam, D. That's my guess. But so you'd want to schedule a call with us so that we could go through and work out the details. Oh, I see D on there. So can she talk?
Yes.
Oh, right on.
Okay. I have another question about.
You have another microphone on somewhere.
Wow.
There we go. I think.
Oh, Is this better now?
Is this better now? Is this better now? Is this better now? Is this better now? Is this better
Still
now?
about 5 echoes.
Maybe.
Somebody somewhere near you has their volume on, or their microphone. Okay, I'm gonna let you figure that one out, Dee, and I'm gonna keep going, and then we'll come back. Okay, so Colleen says on the list, feed bags, a small percentage are number 4, majority are number 5. If you separate that, is there a way to get them transported? Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. We've also talked about twine and a bunch of other things. So yes, if you can get it separated and aggregated into a place, then we want to talk to you about us helping you pick it up. And then Laura Tyler does, whoops, these are moving on me. Does the Pueblo facility have any space for storage? We have a nonprofit that helps communities to divert baling twine from the landfill. We do not have the funds to pick up small amounts. I would say call us on that one. There is some storage, but it's really meant for not to be long-term. So Laura, if you want to go on the website and fill out that form or send an email to Susan, she's at susan@circularcolorado.org, then she can get with you on some specifics with that. Plastic film on this is number 4. Plastic film, yep. We have a market for plastic film here in Colorado. So that's the benefit of this. It's going to go to Driven Plastics. I'm sorry, guys. The chat moves on me here real quick. I think that's Laura asking. I think you're asking about the twine again. We're aware of the twine processor in Arizona. So yeah, now the CTN doesn't pay for any material. So if you want things picked up or you want them stored, you want to get them to market, but there's no transaction, there's no money transacted. That's how the transportation is being subsidized, is through the sale of material. We are really striving to see if this CTN network can show us whether or not transportation can be paid for by the commodity rate of the material. And if not, what's the subsidy required to make it happen, right? To get the material to market out of rural mountain and the plains in Colorado. No, you do not need an entire truckload. So this is for Colleen, or is a pallet or 2 enough to move? Depends on what the material is. Not 1 pallet, not a couple pallets, but probably something like we were saying, 4, 5, 6 pallets. And again, that depends on the material. So send us some specifics to fill out the material pickup form. And that's how we'll figure that out. Okay, Dee, I think you went to the chat, back to the chat because of the microphone. You have several bales of cartons that we have to transport to Republic on an annual basis. Potentially, yes. Again, let's talk about cartons. For us, that ends up being is, how we can get it to market, because it's got to go, as you know, by full truckload or car to the mill. So happy to talk to you about cartons. Happy to talk to you about the glass too. Those are coming down the line though. We first need to get the network set up. Okay, I think we got through those mostly. Susan, you have anything to add to any of those? And let me know if anybody else has any other questions.
No, that was great. Thanks, Lori.
Okay. I don't see any more in the Q&A. Hi, Liz.
So thank you all both so much for sharing all this information. I had a couple of questions I wanted some clarification on. So you had mentioned, Susan, that you can upload pictures of the material from your phone. Can you do the whole process from your phone once the drop-off location or the pickup location has been registered and they've submitted the form and they're ready to submit that request? Can that all be done from the phone? Is that
It
all
can.
mobile-friendly?
Yeah, sorry, Liz, that's a great question. Yes, you can submit the materials request or the pickup request form from your phone. It should be pretty easy. We did it in Jot form, so you can just fill it out, take some photos. It should be pretty seamless. If not, let us know and we'll debug it. But that's the plan, to make it as simple as possible for everybody.
And to follow up on the question that Christine had started, is it possible that a new or even an existing recycling facility that is not processing some of the materials you're processing. Just for a random example, let's talk about downfilled products. Downfilled products are not accepted at any MRF and unlikely to be accepted at any MRF. If they wanted to, could they offer to their customers to be a drop-off location and collect that material and then be a pickup spot for the CTN?
110%. Yes. Yep.
And so what strikes me for the folks that are in touch with these rural locations is, what are the materials that are on this accepted list that the drop-off center or the local MRF is already seeing? For example, plastic film is always coming in, whether you want it to or not, and it's unlikely that your facility desires that material. This is an opportunity to set up a collection and then arrange with the CTN to have it taken and processed. And I see Susan nodding. I don't want to lead anyone astray. And so I just want to be sure that people understand there is an opportunity for a MRF location or a drop-off location to be part of the CTN. It just means that the materials need to be something that don't have a home right now, that are not desirable. They may be getting culled out. And then I see we popped another question in there. So, oh, I can answer Christine's question. I believe the materials list is currently on screen, right? The materials list that could be diverted. Yep. And yes, we are recording this, and it will be available via the Recycle Colorado's webpage, and everybody who registered will get the Recycle Colorado YouTube page. Everyone who registered will get a link to that, and you can share it. We encourage you to share it wildly. Wildly?
Wow, yeah.
And in terms of the presentation, is that something that we could also share later? Could we also send that out, the slideshow, in addition? And oh, so Christine was referring to the list at the end of the presentation.
So the list at the end of the presentation actually came from the survey. So I apologize. I think that was a little bit misleading. But when we sent out that survey, we asked people just what materials they could use some help with moving from their locations. And so this is what people responded with. This is not the list that we're currently picking up from, but we thought that it was interesting to kind of better understand what materials are out there and what people are looking for help with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, those surveys help us a lot, you guys, because so going back to our stakeholder meetings from last year, which actually Liz was a big part of, that's how Twine started to really get on our radar. Was through your feedback, your input at the stakeholder meetings. And so we start working on that. So always ask about any material. And that's one of the CEDC's role, is to work on this and to find the market. If we can't find a market, to try to start to create one. Is the survey on the CEDC website? Great question, Laura. Is it, Susan? And if it's not, we can put a link to it, I'm sure.
It's not, but we'll add a link. That's a great idea.
Okay, that's a great question. Colleen, would a combination of materials be able to be picked up at once? Yes, that's the whole point of this. And the beauty of the CTN is, if you've got 5 Gaylords or 5 Super Sacks and they all have a different material that we can take all those different containers. They'd not have to wait for their own truck, which is the driver behind this. Yeah, that's awesome. Perfect. Yeah, small quantities, multiple materials, more remote, difficulties with transportation. That's the driver behind the CTN. Any more? Okay. I think we're Susan, if you have anything to close, or Liz, if you want us to talk about anything else.
No, I don't think I have anything else. Do you, Liz?
Well, sorry, I was also typing answers to some of the questions. We will be sending out a link. If you registered for the email, we will follow up with a thank you for attending. Here is the link to the recording. It takes a few minutes to transpose from the recording so that we can post it on the YouTube website. So that won't be an immediate thing, but it will be, I believe, and Allie will correct me quickly if I'm wrong, but we will be able to have this by the end of the day posted on our YouTube site. And I see Colleen has asked another question I cannot answer, which is how many stops close to each other would you be able to do?
Great question, Colleen. Yeah, good questions. So ideally we want to make about 4 stops on our return, potentially 5. It just depends on where the truck's coming from, and what those stops look like. So, and again, as far as how close together, if we can only make 4 stops, we don't want to, make a stop and go 2 blocks and make another stop, right? We're looking for really a little bit more central aggregation and everybody to work together. But that's our general rule of thumb is 4 stops. So again, reach out to us and tell us like which stops you're talking about, right? And how far apart they are. And we can go from there and try to make it onto a route for you. Oh, okay. I mean, if I have a collection at Jeffco Fairgrounds, can an equestrian center 10 miles away also be collecting? Yes. Yep. Yep. It's about anywhere from 10 to 30 miles, is what we're looking to do off the main route. So, yes, they could. Just keep in mind that you really want them to do anywhere from 4, 5, 6 containers at a time for the truck to actually stop. Good question. Okay.
And do you already have some stops scheduled for this fall?
We're in the process like right now of taking in forms.
Okay.
Yeah. We know we want to come back from Grand Junction before it snows too much. Grand Junction, the Southwest, up north, and then we will have some smaller routes along more remote areas off the Front Range, right, that we might be able to get to through the winter. But as all of you here in Colorado know, traversing across right from east to west and vice versa come about, December, January, a little tricky.
And you
Joni.
see Joni's question. Yeah,
we don't have fun, so it's tricky for us with our funding. And just to let you know, the CEDC got some additional funding. This is a private company that owns the Transload. It's called Front Range Transload, and a trucking company owned by the same very local couple here in Southern Colorado, in Colorado Springs. And they got a grant for the equipment and things like that. The CEDC has put together the strategy and is building out the entire program. We got a little extra funding for about a half FTE, and it's taking like 1.25 FTEs to get this thing off the ground. So there's not funding for that. The really cool thing, though, is we have launched into a collaborative relationship with the Recycling Partnership, and they do have grants for balers. So if you decide to be an ambassador or your community gets together and says, hey, let's divert some material, we're here to help you with looking at avenues of funding. So we don't have any, but one of the things we do is to help look for the avenues of funding. So reach out to us about that as well. Lots of volunteer hours go into recycling typically. Right, Liz?
yes.
Yeah.
And I think to answer Joni's questions, one of the things I would encourage folks on this call is to reach out to the businesses in your local community, because there's an opportunity here for it to be mutually beneficial, for them to save money on their trash by serving as a pickup spot, and also provide the community a place to take these materials. And because they're saving money, they might be in a position to offer some of that additional staffing or monitoring of the drop off that you are saying that you would need in order to launch this. Do not forget that there is a business proposition to be made here. If there's materials that these businesses are paying to landfill, here is an opportunity for them to not have to pay as long as they're willing to set it up in a way that meets the CTN network's needs in terms of to qualify for pickup.
Well said.
And I don't see any more questions. I saw some people had their hands up earlier, and then I don't see any hands up now. So I'm gonna assume that that means we've answered those questions, but I also want to do the awkward Zoom pause to encourage anybody that did have a question to raise their hand before we close this out. No. Well, I would express thanks again to Susan and Lori for making this a reality in Colorado. This is something that all of us in this space have been talking about for well over a decade. So thank you for making it a reality. And thank you to the folks who have attended, asked these questions, are looking to make this be successful for all of us. And before we sign off, Susan, Lori, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think we put the website. Susan's put everything you guys need in the chat, coloradocedc.org. It's Susan at circularcolorado.org. So inundate her inbox. You'll love that with all kinds of materials that we want to pick up. And as always, Recycle Colorado, thank you. Such a great partner. We're really all in this together. So yeah, let's just move some material.
Well, fantastic. Look for a follow-up email in your inbox and share this recording wildly. And you all have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.